keep hanging on. So let's just get started, and if guys join in, that'll be awesome. I'll push record so we can save a copy of this and post it. But
you sure you want it?
I do. I can always delete it. Oh, it's fine.
Okay.
Dr. Theurer up there. I don't know how many of you know Dr. Theurer, but I have known him since I was like 13 when I met you for the first time. I was a young boy. We both lived here in Salt Lake, and then Jared has a really interesting story that I think I'm going to ask him to tell about how he went to dental school and what it was like, and kind of that journey that he went on. But Dr. Theurer is one of those men that I look to as a mentor, as a friend for his life. I just think he'll have so much advice to share, and honesty about the life that hopefully other dentists want to imitate. He really has figured out an excellent balance of business and family and taking care of patients and taking care of his team. They routinely go on the humanitarian trips and have for, since the beginning. That's like a tradition that you guys do. He won the Young Dentist of the Year award. He's won the Humanitarian of the Year award for his constant leadership on our humanitarian trips to Guatemala and to the Dominican. And we're almost neighbors. He's in Salt Lake City here with me, and that it's one of the neatest things to watch and watch Jared work. Jared, do you want to build in telling everybody how you got started as a dentist? I think it's a cool story.
Yeah, I can do that. And thanks for all that, Stuart. That's humbling. I certainly appreciate that. And I love the Andersons, and Stuart is one of my dear friends, and I appreciate him inviting me to be here with you all tonight. I love the mentoring aspect of dentistry, and it's something that maybe many of you have already begun to do as you talk to friends or younger folks that are interested in dentistry or just getting going in dental school or applying to dental school. And so I would admonish you all to see your role as mentor and as example for some of these younger folks as being essential for the future of dentistry, and to take it seriously. I certainly got into dentistry because of that very reason. I was blessed with a father who was a dentist, and just a guy who absolutely loved and cared for people. He was more of a friend and a counselor than he ever was a dentist, for sure. And I learned a lot from that. We'll talk a little bit about that tonight. But I got into dentistry not because my dad was a dentist. I actually thought I was going to go to med school, and got halfway down that road and just kind of went, I'm not so interested in that. And Stuart, if there's any details I missed here that you think are essential, let me know.
Okay.
But what was really interesting was I ended up kind of floating through college trying to figure out, okay, if not medicine, then what else? And I was working as I started off as a busboy and was working as a server, and then a local restaurant here that's quite popular in Salt Lake. And I did that through high school and my undergraduate career at the University of Utah. And I love to fly fish. Outside of working in the office, I probably spend more time in a river than I do in people's mouths. And that's something that I have learned to connect with my family with. And that's what our family does, to spend our time together and as we connect and build deeper and stronger bonds. So through the fly fishing stuff and being a restaurateur, I thought, maybe I'll just finish up this degree in psychology, and then I'm going to go ahead and open up a restaurant with a couple of fly guys that I knew, and they were going to do the fly guiding, and I was going to do the restaurant side of it. And we went down that road for about a year, and just one day I just thought, this is really not the direction I should be going. And I went into it. We had a business plan, and we were ready to get funding. And anyway, long story short, I just backed out of the whole thing, and they we're sort of sitting back going, well, now what do we do? And then little did I know, they were running a small fly shop here in Salt Lake. And little did I know that they were just kind of on their last tail end of that business. They were struggling mightily. And anyway, so they closed that fly shop down about 3 months after I backed out of that deal. So,
wow.
but I had 3 boys at that time. I had been married for about 6 years, and my wife and I had our 3 oldest sons. And I was kind of looking at these boys, and they were ages 5, and well, at the time it was 4, and then there was one who was just 2, and then one who was barely born. And I just thought, I've been afforded all these opportunities in my life because of my parents, and I need to offer something to my boys, so I've got to figure this out. And went to my dad and I just said, what do you think if I went back to school and did the prereqs for dental school and take the next 2 years and really focus in on that? And he said, yeah, I think that's a great idea. Anything but restaurateuring. I just think that's not going to be a thing for you. Anything but fly guiding, anything like that. Just do something constructive. So Heather and I worked out a deal where she was working to help pay the bills. I was going to school full-time, only working a couple of shifts at the restaurant. Actually, to make ends meet, for about 2 years before dental school, I was throwing 2 paper routes, which you guys don't even know what a paper route is. But that's just kind of what you do to make ends meet. I applied to dental school twice, and both times I thought I was going to go to Virginia Commonwealth University. There was a dentist in my dad's building who had gone there. He was eager to see me go. My dad had gone to Loyola, and Loyola had closed many years ago, so I didn't have a legacy, so to speak, to apply to. But anyway, first time didn't get in. Second time made the alternate list and got a nice phone call from Marshall Brownstein, who was the director of admissions there. And he just said, you know what, the third time is going to be your time. I guarantee it, you're in. And I was really frustrated and wondered if I should even go back and try again. And just something compelled me to do that. And mostly it was my wife encouraging me and just feeling like I've got to give it one more shot. So applied a third time, actually retook my DAT, recommitted myself, so to speak, to doing a lot better in that and doing a lot better with my grades. Retook a few classes. Met an interesting friend who turned out to be one of my best friends. And we were studying one day, and he said, hey, I'm applying to this school in San Francisco, UOP, and it had not even been on my radar. And he goes, you really need to apply there. And he ended up getting in a little bit earlier than he expected. He applied late in the cycle, and he ended up getting in for we would have been in the same class had he been on the same track that I was on, and he was, but he got in a little earlier and called me up when he was there, and he goes, absolutely, you need to come here. So I applied again, and the details are basically, I met with Craig Yarborough, who was the director of admissions there, and met with him at the University of Utah campus. And he told me that my DAT score was in and of itself good enough for an interview with them. And I said, yeah, I've tried to bring that up. And he said, well, I think you can count on an interview with us. And little did I know that an interview with UOP meant that you would be accepted, basically. So I had met with them, had left the next day after meeting with him down to UNLV for an interview, which I left early because at the time I was applying for UNLV's second class. And at that time, they didn't even have a clinic to look at. So in the middle of that really quirky interview, I left and just said, this isn't where I need to go. On the way home, I get a call from my wife, and she says, hey, we got a voicemail on our answering machine at home, which dates me a little bit there too. And so I said, really? And she goes, yeah, it's from UOP. So UOP called me 48 hours basically after I met with Dr. Yarborough and asked me for an interview, and I went out and stayed with my good friends, and went to the interview. And the interview was unlike anything else that I had ever experienced in interviewing. Dean Yarborough sat down with us and just said, look, the reason why you're here is because we want you. You need to figure out today if you want us. And he just said, you're not here to sell yourself. We're here to sell ourselves and make sure that you recognize we're the best dental school in the US. And they did that. And, you know, on my way out the door, he goes, I hope you make the right decision to come here. And sure enough, December 1st comes around and I get the phone call, you want to come to our class? And I just, quite honestly, I was so emotional. I just kind of fell to my knees, and was really grateful for that opportunity, and still am. And about 3 days later, I got a call from Marshall Brownstein from VCU to say, hey, guess what? You're in VCU. And I said, guess what? I accepted 3 days ago at Pacific. So sorry about that. And it was the best phone call ever. So anyway, that's my story on how I got in. It was basically, and my journey to dentistry, it was just a lot of tenacity and hard work. And it's just like anything in life. You've got to put in the hard work to do what it takes to make sure that you get the results that you want. And I don't think there's any way around that. It's just, there's no shortcut. And anytime you hear somebody that said, oh, I've got this perfect shortcut, or I've got the ideal short answer to getting what you want, be super wary of that, because I just haven't seen that happen in many people's lives. So anyway, I hope that's what you wanted.
No, it was perfect. I just think it's a kind of inspiring, kind of different story for everybody that might even still be in that position. So I wanted to welcome everybody here. I hadn't really done that yet, so thanks for joining us. I hope that with this small of a group, you know, we're not so big that it would be weird for anyone to pipe in or just like chime in at any time. So if you've got questions or have follow-up questions for Dr. Theurer, just pipe up as he shares and presents. I think that's what makes this so good, is that although he's going to present, this is a group that has the opportunity to ask questions and to be engaged. So I would definitely encourage that. One other thing before we get started, Dr. Hornbrook he is just not in the position to fly. He does not want to come to Salt Lake City. So we are postponing August. So we have every intention of meeting with our patient and taking care of them and doing the smile design with Dr. Hornbrook. It is just too weird here in Utah to encourage. Dr. Hornbrook just does not want to come, and that's perfectly fine. That's his choice. So we're working on solutions and ways to take care of our patient and for you guys. So if it's just postponed, that's it for now for our smile design case. So anyway, that's it. Jared, I'll turn the time over to you. We'll probably try to end as close to 9 as we can. But it's your floor, and that's it, man. Go take it away.
So, super informal here, and please do. If you've got questions or thoughts that come up, comments about anything I say, I hope what I say tonight and is from what you already know. Because right now, each one of you being on this call and being a member of the Crown Council and being involved in a program like the Young Dentist program, you're already miles and years ahead of the peers that you all left behind in dental school. So I just think that kudos to each one of you for doing what you're doing. And I hope that I can share some things that are pearls of wisdom. There are certainly things that have helped me and continue to help me as I practice many of these. So what Stuart asked me to do was share with you 5 things that all young dentists should be doing right now. And I'll expand that, like I said, to these are 5 things that I think you should be doing constantly throughout your career. And as you go throughout your career, of course, these things will evolve and you will find yourself at different levels. And I think that that's what you want to always remember. Dean Degoni, when I first started school, he said some very interesting things on our first day of class. And one of the things that he said, he asked us, he said, why are you all here? And he just was silent after that. And he got an answer finally from the front row, which was, well, we're here to learn to be the best dentist we can be. And he goes, that's secondary, 100% secondary. You're here to learn how to be good people. And we are going to grow you as people. And then along the way, you're going to learn how to be a dentist as well. I've always been told that dentistry shouldn't define you. Dentistry should be not who you are. Dentistry should be a part of who you are, and you shouldn't try to compartmentalize your life. I think that makes things difficult when you decide that you're going to be a dentist during these hours, and then you're going to be whatever else you are in your off hours. Who you are is who you are, and you need to be true to yourself. The first thing that I did when I got out of school, two things. I got myself a good coach. I recognized coming out of school that I knew a little bit about the business of dentistry, having grown up in it. I certainly was aware of insurances and how the insurance game was played. I was aware of how a dental office operated in general. So I was kind of savvy to that, but I recognized that there was a lot to learn in the way of communicating with your team and leading a team and communicating with patients, how to manage and to understand where your practice was headed, both financially, but also organically, how it was growing. So getting a good coach was number one to me. And there was a number of opportunities there. And I realized that I needed a coach, not just from the kind of the business practice management side, but I needed a coach from the clinical side. And that leads me to number two here in a second. But the coach that I chose was Steve Anderson in Tops. And Steve I had known for a long time. And I had been involved with the Crown Council throughout dental school. And so I got to know Steve through that. And so when I got out, Steve was just in the first few months of beginning the total patient service business that he runs. And I got to meet his practice management team. His practice advisors are some of the best out there. I was paired with Mary Beth Brown, and during the first year of our working together, we took a practice that I bought straight out of school that was doing about $450,000 a year. And I didn't realize that we had done this until Steve called me out in the middle of a leadership conference on it. But within the first year of working with Mary Beth, that was August 1 of 2006 to August 1 of 2007, we did $1 million in that practice in 2 chairs. And Steve was astounded, but I have to give credit to looking for opportunity in ways that I wouldn't have looked for opportunity. And that meant we looked at how to obtain new patients. What was the best way to retain patients? What were the scores that we were looking at? We were always looking at the scoreboard to tell us the tail of the tape, so to speak, as to where we were at in the practice. And I will always attribute Steve's coaching and Mary Beth's coaching to our really great start in dentistry. I mentioned that I needed not only a good practice coach, but I needed a good clinical coach. You all realize, just like I did, that when you get out of dental school, they taught you how to be a pretty safe beginner. And so I started to look for a mentor that would teach me all the things that I felt like I didn't know as a general dentist, but needed to know. And The mentor that I chose was up in Seattle. It happened to be John Coyce. And I chose him because of a particular case that came across my office within the first 2 months of me practicing. Had a fellow come in who had been wearing his teeth down significantly over about 50 years. And he had been a patient of the practice I purchased for probably about 15 of those years. And he wasn't happy with the way his four maxillary incisors looked. So Emax was new on the scene, and I heard it was a cool material, and I went ahead and said, great, yeah, let's do some veneers for you, and threw them into 4 Emax veneers. Now, I hadn't been tutored yet by David Hornbrook. I knew very little occlusion. I just knew, bite down, and if I see marks and it doesn't feel good, great, erase those marks. That's kind of what I knew coming out of school, single tooth dentistry. So I put these 4 veneers on this fellow, and within about 2 or 3 months, he destroyed them. And so I brought him back in, and he goes, yeah, I don't know what happened. I said, well, what were you chewing on? And he goes, nothing. I woke up and had porcelain all in my mouth. And I thought, oh, dang it. All right, well, back to the drawing board. Maybe there was a faulty material here. Something happened at the lab. You do that. That's the lab. So, I had 4 more made and put them in there and really paid attention now to his bite and felt like, okay, I got this. It took him another 2 months and he destroyed those 2. And he went to a dentist who I know well now through some of the CE courses I've taken here in town, a really good guy. And I'm really grateful to this guy because he went to this guy and he goes, look, there's some structural issues, the way that you're chewing on your teeth, not quite great for this type of material and what we're trying to do here. There's some design issues here. So really you need to be in some crowns, and I'd suggest this, but why don't you go back to Dr. Theurer, and Dr. Theurer will take good care of you, I promise. So I was grateful for that. And he came back and saw me and he goes, hey, I just want to be open and honest. I saw this guy. Well, in the meantime, I had already been given a heads up. This guy called me and he goes, hey, I'm sending this guy back to you. Here's what I would do. And he just walked me through everything I needed to know, from material selection to occlusion and what to look for and all that. And it was eye-opening. I spent an hour with him on the phone and just went, I know absolutely nothing at all. And so he came back. We did exactly what needed to be done. And he still has those crowns to this day. He's a patient of the practice. He's a great guy. And I thank him every time he comes in for his cleaning for being patient with the new guy. And he goes, hey, look at how far you've come. So I attribute his case and that situation to me seeking out Dr. John Coyce. And through Dr. Coyce, I have spent a lot of time learning a lot about not just occlusion and full mouth rehabilitations, but a lot about the science of dentistry and a lot about materials as well as surgical techniques and a whole number of things that just simply were not taught to me in dental school. And I was one of those guys who came out and bought a practice. I didn't go to a general practice residency or an AGD. I just kind of came out and did what I did. And so I needed that. Through that and through the Crown Council, I recognized the importance of really the mastermind. And so that's probably number 2. Get a good clinical mentor, stick with that clinical mentor, and develop the mastermind group that you have around what it is that you want to base your practice philosophy on. What is it that you're going to do and how are you going to treat patients so that you have a standardized method of making sure that patients are treated uniformly according to their wants and needs. So that's number 2. Talking too fast? Anybody have any questions up till now? Great. The mute buttons all stay red. Yeah.
I can unmute everyone instantly if you want me to.
Oh, yeah, sure. They'd love it. They'd love it. Number 3, this is something that I think is so key. learn right now how to become a great leader and a great mentor yourself. Great leaders and great mentors, the thing that they have most in common is that they know how to communicate. They know how to communicate by asking questions that will lead to answers that people discover for themselves. Great leaders are people who walk the talk. They do what they ask you to do. Learn how to become a good leader now, and through that, not just how to lead your patients and or lead your team and how to mentor others in the dental field, but really how to be a good leader in your practice, because patients are looking to you to be the leader for their oral health. And that means you're the doctor. What you say goes, and you can't pause. You can't hesitate. You can't sit there and hem and haw about treatment. You need to be definitive, and you need to know where you're headed and be confident in that. And that's part of being a great leader as well. Find yourself some way to learn about leadership. I read leadership books, practice management, personal management books. I would say probably one every 2 months. And there's a litany of them out there. One of my favorites right now that I'm rereading for the 4th time is How Will You Measure Your Life by Clayton Christensen, which is one of my favorite books. There's another book that I'm about to start called Breathe. I don't know if any of you have heard about this one, but it's been on the New York Times bestseller list for the last few weeks here. But it's literally about physiologic breathing, different breathing techniques, and how they can make you healthier, happier, less stress. That's all part of leadership. That's all making yourself better, and then through that, learning how to help others. So that's number 3. Learn how to become a great leader, a great communicator, a great listener. Learn how to ask lots of questions. That's all part of being a great leader. Number 4, I would start now to create a career-long CE path. One of the things that I learned at UOP when I first started was dentistry was not something to be learned in the 3 or 4 years that you were in dental school and then in a residency. Dentistry was something that was to be learned and to be developed over a career. And that once I went down that path, I was a lifelong learner at that point. So part of my CE plan, of course, at the outset was working with the Coy Center and going through the continuum there. But I have set up a systematic set of goals to go through certain continuing education courses. And I've been very specific about the course that I want to go to, or at least the subject matter that I'd like to go to, and then searched out through the mastermind the best possible source for that certain subject matter. That has not failed me. I feel like at every turn in my career where I've gone to another CE course that has come up on my plan, it is the right time, and I have found patients that have those needs and have made those courses very applicable to our practice, and they build on each other. So the most important part of being in dentistry is recognizing that it changes. That is the one constant in life, and you need to be on top of that. Right now, all of you are on top of your game because most of you are fresh out of school and you're cutting edge kind of stuff. But that will quickly pass you by. We all know how quickly technology changes. We certainly look in today's literature. I was reading the compendium today about how little dentists have harnessed the use of CT-aided implant placement and surgical guides. For many of you, that may be something that you learned in school, or just think, yeah, if I'm placing implants, I'm going to use a surgical guide no matter what. But there's it's interesting to read that article and see some of the cases that they're doing. Absolutely fascinating. But it's interesting to see how the technology can be out there, and yet how quickly, or how unquickly, I guess I should say, we are in applying that technology and applying the opportunity that we have to make patients' treatment easier and better for them. So I think that that's really important. Create that long-term CE plan, really work hard at sticking to it. Recognize that just like your dental school training was an investment into your future, CE is a long-term investment, and it definitely has, and you want to make sure that you're wise about this, but it definitely has a return on that investment. All right, last one, and then, wow, I'm flying through this.
You're good. That's good.
We're doing good? Okay, we'll
Yep.
have time for question, answers, and discussion. The last thing that I think is so important, and I'm pretty sure I'm talking to everybody who's a general dentist here, right? I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
Okay. So I think one of the most important things for you all to recognize is that you need to quarterback your cases as the general dentist if you're utilizing auxiliary help through your specialists, which means you need to learn everything that your specialists know. You need to be the smartest guy in the room, because your specialists know about that much of dentistry. They focus in on exactly what it is that they're doing day in and day out. You need to know everything about all the specialties so that when you look in somebody's mouth, you can, within minutes, be able to make a diagnosis, which is key, a general diagnosis, and have a treatment plan in mind, because patients don't want to sit there for 2 hours and be told, okay, I've gathered all the information, and now I'm going to have you come back in 2 weeks, and I'm going to have a treatment plan for you. They want to know now. What are you going to do for them? You've got to have a great idea. And sometimes that means you've got to involve specialists. And as you involve specialists, one of the most important things that you can do to maintain the relationship that you have with the patient is to quarterback their case. You make sure that you stay on top of every play that is happening in that patient's life. That means you need to have the information that you can explain to the patient about what's going to happen next in the specialist's office, why it's going to happen. You need to have the relationship with your specialists to know this are the materials that they use, these are the techniques that they use, this is why they do what they do, so that patients have zero questions. Patients do not understand everything you say. You have to say things 5, 6, 7 times to them before they may get half of what it is that you're trying to explain. They don't care how smart you are either. They just want to make sure that they're taken care of. And so it's important to give them as much information as possible without overload. But when they have questions, you need to be able to answer those questions. So as you quarterback cases, you need to know everything about endo. You need to know everything about implants, about grafting, about CT scanning, about the materials they're using, etc. It's all part of the CE game. And the more you know and the better you're informed, the better planned your cases will go. And the better planned your cases go, the more your treatment outcomes will be predictable and you will be more profitable. Nothing will eat. And so try your hardest to know everything you can about what your specialists are doing when you're engaging them, and then make sure that you are on top of taking care of those patients throughout the entire process with specialists. So those were my 5 things.
Awesome.
That was a mouthful.
That was good. It was good. Jared, how did you learn that? Like number 5, I feel like there was like a thing that maybe, how did you come to know that? You were very passionate about number 5.
You know, you need to, I have had a couple of cases early in my career when I would send a patient into a specialist, and there have been, I would say, 3 different times that I've had very specific things happen that I was not happy with. First was I had a patient who had an upper partial. I sent her to a specialist for 4 implants. This was my first year of practice. And I wanted to do an implant bridge for her upper partial. And I think she was missing 8 teeth. So I sent her to the specialist. The specialist looked at it, knew who I was, and told her, yeah, we can put these implants in, but I think that you want to go to this prosthodontist to do the rest of it, because Dr. Theurer, he's great, you know, just, I don't know, he's just been a year out of school, so you're going to invest a lot of money. You better go to this other guy.
Wow.
I learned really quickly that when I refer people, I need to make sure that the specialist knew that I knew exactly what was going on. Did we have a talk? Yeah, that periodontist and I had a talk. And that's when I realized I need to learn how to do implants now. Because if I can do 80%, 90% of my own stuff and not refer people out, then I retain all the control, which is what patients, they like to be in your practice. They know you. They don't want to be sent to somebody else and start a new relationship. Sometimes that has to happen, and you've got to be smart about that. Don't try to do things that you don't feel comfortable doing, but learn what you need to learn in order to put the arrows in your quiver that will help you become less of a referrer and more of a practitioner. The other 2 things that happened, one, I had a patient who went in for a root canal, and I knew the specialist and I knew the patient, and I knew both personalities, and I should have never matched them up. And so that was one of the times when I realized, okay, I need to be really careful as I quarterback these cases and making sure that I match up people with people, because there are certain people who will get along with certain people. And there are certain people who simply just will not tolerate different types of personalities. So that was another moment. And that was a patient who came back down to me and basically said, if you ever send me anywhere else, I'll leave your practice. And they were great. No, she was super kind, and she's still a patient of mine, and she still laughs about that. And then I had a case where I sent the patient in to have a couple of implants placed, and they came out with about 5 more implants than I expected and a whole different treatment plan. And that was based upon an oral surgeon who just thought, I just know better. And I wasn't very specific, I guess, with saying, hey, I just want these 2 teeth out and implants placed. It was, now we're doing a full arch rehab, and the patient comes back to me after getting an estimate for 2 implant crowns to get an estimate now for a hybrid denture, which is completely different. So, and that was, and we're up a creek, right? They went in, the oral surgeon said, nope, I really think you just need to have all your teeth out on the bottom, and here we go. And so they did that, but didn't realize, oh, there's a whole prosthetic fee attached to this, and that was a problem. So you learn those lessons early in your career. Hopefully you listen to old guys like me who have made all those mistakes, and you don't make those mistakes. Just make sure that you 100% communicate with your patients what your specialists are going to be doing. I send out referral letters so that we have no doubt as to what it is that we want from the specialist. And I have now relationships with each of my specialists that you're seeing my patient to do exactly what I'm telling you to do. You're basically my clinical lab for this. Don't do anything different. And then they come back to me, and it's exactly the way it should be. So
nice. Very good. Unmute if you have questions. Let's spend a few minutes asking Jared, and anything you want to ask, let's do it. I think it'd be fun to share and hear from you guys if you'd like. Or I can sit here in silence. I am very comfortable with silence.
I'll turn on some music.
Hey, I got a question for you. Talk to me about Kois. So you're a new grad, you just graduated, and you're like, sign me up for what, 20 grand worth of CE your first year out. Like how long did it take you to get through it? You know, I'm personally, I'm starting down Spear right now, kind of baby stepping into it.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
you know, I haven't gone to the campus, you know, and this year that I don't think is going to happen anyway. But you know, just tell me about your experience getting into COIS and like the process.
Sure. No, I think that when you look at a mentor like that, Spear, Coyce, Dawson Pankey, whoever it is, I mean, even uh, you're going to look at a lot of money being spent. And so baby steps was definitely how I took it. And I decided I would take 2 classes a year. And at that time, Coyce was doing 9 courses. We've got some now that are sort of mixed up, and so you're doing like a full week with him. But we would go in on a Thursday. We'd be there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, so 3 days. And I did that in the spring and then in the fall for about 5 years. So it took me a little bit of time to get through it. But yeah, I went ahead and made that commitment financially to do that. And then after those 5 years, started to move off into other things and find other CE courses. I budgeted that with my practice management team and just made sure that I was coming in at that budget level for my CE. And that's part of creating a really good CE plan. What's your budget going to be for that? Because not only do you pay for the course, but you also pay for the time out of your practice. So that's something else to think about as far as the investment.
Very good.
Did that help, Nick?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, 5 to 6 years. I mean, that seems more reasonable. I do have a couple people that I know that just went all in and knocked it out in a year, and then went to COIS and did that one in another year. And it just seems excessive, and I just kind of wanted to feel what you did, and kind of seems like a more reasonable approach for me is to kind of do kind of how you did it. So thank you.
You're welcome. I think that works for some people. They can do that financially and then also cognitively. There is so much to get from one of those courses and then to implement it in your practice. That's the way that I thought about it. I'm going to drink from the fire hose for 3 days, and then I'm going to bring this back. And for 6 months, I'm going to practice what I learned and make it perfect before I make the next step. And so there was kind of a method to the madness, not just financially, but cognitively too. I had to, figure that out. And there's something to be said for learning all of these clinical things, but remember too, you've got to implement them with real people. And so there's something to be learned about how to talk to patients and to help them move forward with treatment. If you go to a COIS program or a SPEAR program, you're going to learn a lot about big case dentistry, and not everybody's walking into your practice looking for a new set of crowns or hybrids or something like that. A lot of patients that you'll see, I would say 90% of the patients you're seeing have single tooth dentistry to be done, and that's great. Learn how to do single tooth dentistry and do it really, really well. But also learn what periodontal issues. Look at the overall picture so that when you recognize signs and symptoms, that you're able to have a conversation with the patient that starts to lay the groundwork for that dentistry. Because as you build relationships over time as a general dentist, it may take you 5, 6, 7 conversations before a patient will say, I think there's something to this, doctor. I'm really starting to see what you're seeing and experience what you said I'd experience. How do I fix this? And now you've got a patient who's interested and has a primary interest in doing something, rather than you bringing up something that they go, I never recognized that before. I've never thought about that. They may not be ready to move forward with something like that because they've never recognized it as an issue. It's much easier to have somebody come in who says, my teeth are a jumbled mess and I really feel like I need orthodontics to make them look better. I'm not chewing well. And you go, great, orthodontics, this is what we're going to do. And they go, great. Yep, they came in ready. It's different when you've got somebody getting their teeth cleaned and you go, it would be much easier to keep your teeth clean. And I'm seeing wear on your teeth that's happening because of your malocclusion. What do you think about doing some orthodontics? Two different conversations and two different ways to approach things. But planting that seed and moving forward with larger cases down the road are things that you'll start to work into. You may not jump into them right away. Little tangent there, Nick, on your question. Sorry.
No, it's good. Thank you.
Others? More?
Yeah, I have a question. Can you hear me?
You bet.
Yep.
So I kind of similar to you. I'm 3 years out of school and I just purchased my practice about a year ago. And
Congrats.
I started with thank you. I started with Mary Beth as well with Tops.
Oh, it is.
And I just wanted to ask you a couple questions. When you first started, did you have her coming into your office every 3 months doing the hands-on training? Was it more just phone calls? Kind of how did you go about doing that? The coaching?
Great question. I jumped all in. I wanted to see what the full immersion looked like. And so at that time, the agreement was Mary Beth would come out twice a year and she'd spend 3 days in Salt Lake. And the first day would be an observation day. Second day would be training. And some of that training would be tailor-made based upon what she had seen the day before. And some of it had been pre-planned based upon conversations that we had had. And then the third day was implementation, and she was there typically for about half of the day during that day, and then she'd fly out that night and take off. And then I'd have monthly calls with her where we'd go through the numbers and make sure that we were on the right track and we were seeing things that we could change or not change or improve. And then included in that was I would make sure that my team was at an immersion course every 2 years. And I still do that, even though I've got some people who've been to immersion like 6 times. And every time they go, they learn something new. And that's great. I've had hygienists go to No More Hygiene like 4 times. So there's something to be said about repeat on that, just people learning. Entropy is definitely always at play with your team members. So be prepared for that. Don't be frustrated with constant correction and constant reminders. It's just people. But that's kind of what I did with Mary Beth. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
You bet.
I'd love to maybe pick your brain sometime after this phone call and just ask you a few more things about kind of first year out of school, how you ran your business, a bunch of different things that way too.
You bet. I'm more than happy to do it. I'm going to put on the chat here, I'm going to go ahead and put my cell phone. So if any of you want to contact me, just shoot me a text and we can either text or we can talk via phone. There you go. So you've got that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Feel free to use that anytime you need to.
Thank you.
Jared also.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say you love to get memes too. Just if you want to text Jared jokes or memes, just kidding. Sorry.
You know me too well. Andrew, one thing I'll tell you too, and you may want to talk to me a little bit about this offline. Mary Beth is very particular in the way that she coaches people, and she has a different approach. And I really appreciated her approach because of how she was not the type of person to come in and say, all right, we got to do everything different here. We would pick a piece or two of the elephant at a time. She loved to tell me I was eating an elephant. And so it was implementation of just a couple of things every time she was there. And it was just a year's approach, a year, 5, 6, 7 year approach of working with her. I made a little transition in my practice about 5 years ago and did something a little different with Steve. And actually we're just in the process of, and this is news to Stuart, we're in the process of shifting back to the way we were doing it before. So, and that's great. Steve and I have a little different idea, Stuart. You and I have to talk offline about some of that because it's kind of cool. So anyway.
Cool.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to you more
Awesome.
about Mary. Tell her I said hi.
Awesome. I love that.
Okay.
I will, for sure.
Cool.
Thank you.
You betcha.
Any other questions? We got plenty of time, so.
You bet. I got a question for all of you. I'm just curious here. How many of you have started placing implants regularly in your practice?
I have.
Who said that?
Sorry,
So
that's me, Travis Adams.
just one, just you, Travis?
Yeah, I placed a few, but it's not a regular thing for me.
Okay.
Same here. I've done a number over the last few years, but not a regular week in, week out type of situation.
Got it. How many of your patients do you see that are all of you seeing patients to refer out for implants a couple of times a week, or what is your usual average for referring if you're not placing them?
I would say probably 1 or 2 a week.
Yeah, same.
Got it.
Yes, same with me.
For those of you who are placing some implants, what systems are you using in your own practice?
That's part of my problem with holding off right now is I'm in between systems. I was using one called Osteo Ready, and they changed companies, and then the following company went out of business.
Right.
We initially started with Hyasin, switched to Neodent, and very, very quickly switched back to Hyasin and sold, I think, 100 implants on eBay from Neodent because they were just...
Interesting.
Sorry, that cut out about the Neodent. Why did you get rid of the Neodent?
Their prosthetic, I guess, whole side of things was pretty bad. The metal that they would use for for their screws, for their abutments, was really soft. For example, their torque value for all their restorations was 15 Newton centimeters, and if you went 16 Newton centimeters, that screw would strip. No question. And then their implants themselves were okay. We saw a pretty significant increase in crestal bone loss compared to all of our Hyasin implants that
So I would just, listening to you guys talk, I would highly encourage you to really look at getting some continuing education in placing and looking at making that a regular part of your practice. There's some great opportunity there in same-day treatment with patients who are new to your practice, who come in with emergency type stuff. So I would urge you all to really look into putting that arrow in your quiver ASAP.
Dr. Theurer, do you do a lot of extractions and immediate placement same day?
I've kind of gone through phases, Ben. I've done that. And then I find my failure rates go up. And so I've become more conservative with doing immediates unless it's pretty darn obvious that I'm going to get myself at least 40, 50 Newtons of torque.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I just get such better results when I graft it and go ahead and bring the patient back a few months later. But with these patients with same-day treatment, if you're going to be doing an implant, it's obviously, okay, we're going to do a socket preservation procedure here, and we try to get them to make sure that they financially commit to that implant by offering an incentive to go ahead and cover the costs for that and get them on the books for a visit back in 3 to 6 months. So
I like that approach.
yep. I think implants, they may be daunting to some of you, especially those of you who haven't had a lot of surgical experience. Next time you're worried about placing an implant, just go out, find your best Black & Decker drill, get a good wood screw, and just screw it into something wooden. And that's about as easy as it is to place an implant. As long as you know where the wood is located, you can screw an implant into somebody's jaw. You just need to know where the wood is, right? And so, find yourself a good CT scan source if you don't have that and you're concerned. You want to do some guided surgeries. There's so many opportunities now to do good implant placement. You should be learning that for sure.
Do you do most of your cases guided? It sounded like from earlier comments you do.
Yep. I've moved to that. And it took us a little while to get all the tools in the office because that can be financially daunting. But we eventually did get, the last tool was the CBCT. We've had the Trio scanner and we've had the implant planning software from Trios for quite some time. We had a Formlabs 3D printer installed about 2 years ago. And we got that at the same time we got the CBCT. So now for the last 2 years, probably 99% of our implants are guided.
Gotcha.
Yep. Beforehand, we were using Implant Concierge and we were sending them, we do a CT scan with our specialist that works upstairs. We've got a endodontist upstairs with one. And so we get the DICOM file from him and then we just go ahead and do the scan from our Trio scanner and send that to Implant Concierge. And we were doing them that way. But I'd say because of the cost of that, we were doing maybe 50-50 at that point. So.
Okay.
No, great questions. Any other questions? Was that helpful? I just a little feedback, but was that seriously helpful?
It's helpful in the fact that it's really motivating, especially for us who are early in our careers. And I'll speak for myself, maybe sometimes feel like we're floundering and wonder how on earth is this going to happen and how am I going to start these bigger cases? So it's nice to hear that it does take time still, and starting with different resources that you mentioned, that's where it's helpful to me personally. So I appreciate it. Thanks for all the advice and suggestions.
I'm glad to hear that. And like I started out with, it's just hard work. It's just the guys who show up every morning and work hard. Those are the dentists who are going to be successful. When you just are doing something that other people don't want to do, you're going to set yourself apart from other dentists. Be dedicated to your patients, be dedicated to your team, have a passion for this, and you're going to all be successful. You're going to do great.
I love that you've each met Jared. I think he's honest about contacting him with his, that's not like a fake cell phone. That's not like Starsha Swiznicki's like fake number. That's his real cell phone. So reach out to him. I mean, that is a key part of what this mastermind and Crown Council is all about is we rise together. You don't practice alone. And hopefully you've made a new mentor here that you can lean on and ask questions to. So thank you, Jared.
Absolutely. Happy to do it for y'all.
All right. Well, I'm going to hang up. I'm going to end the recording and hang up with you guys. But thanks so much for joining us. And then if anybody has any feedback for next month on who you want to talk to, if it's a business or another dentist in Crown Council, maybe I'll send out a little survey of who I can reach out to for a mastermind call. So thanks, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Theurer.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
Stuart. Thanks, Jared.
Hey, happy to do it. And really use that phone number. If you need something, you've got a question, I'm always happy to answer anything or help out where I can.
Thank
Okay,
you.
have a good night, everybody.